Of course, my name is Mancheno. I am an immigration attorney at the Bronx Defenders in New York.
What kind of a disaster is Donald Trump for immigration reform and immigration issues?
More than anything, I think that the new administration has been incredibly successful at dehumanizing the people behind the discussion of immigration issues in this country. I think that this administration has taken away the humanity for the, first of all, more than 11 million undocumented people living in the U.S., but in general, about the people who aspire to be Americans, who are new Americans, and are contributing immensely to this great country.
If you were placed in charge of immigration starting tonight, and you could enact policies of your own to change the face of what it's like, what would you do first?
So I think the most important thing to highlight is the fact that we need to address the needs of our country, but we also need to address in general the needs that the world has for a country like ours as a leader in the free world. One of the things that I would specifically change, and I think that would dramatically make a difference, is the fact that if one thinks about how immigration laws are written, they're written to favor people who have money, people who come from certain racial backgrounds, and like when people talk about immigration and illegal immigration and the fact that people are now coming here legally, something that people forget is that the ability for people to come to the U.S. is very, very limited when you do not have money and if you are poor. So for the people who are coming across the border, first of all, are people who are fleeing persecution. Second, are people who are in grave need. They are doing and making this very challenging move in order to be able to provide a better future for themselves and their families. Unfortunately, one of the punishments that our current legal system has is the fact that once you have crossed the border, one of the borders of the U.S. without authorization, you're permanently barred from all sorts of form of immigration statuses here in the country. So the first thing that I would change is to actually take away that, that punishment that we have for people who have entered the country without papers, without documents. If we're able to take that, we will be able to open a lot of doors on a lot of forms of immigration status that people can access and can allow them to eventually continue to contribute to the country that they are part of. Now, the other thing that I would change is, in general, I think that specifically during the past 10 to 15 years, there has been a lot of laws that were passed to criminalize immigration, to criminalize coming into the U.S. and to criminalize the idea of immigration in general. There were a lot of laws that were passed in 1996 that have harmed the immigrant community in really, really damaging ways. So it would be important to look at those laws that were passed in 1996, specifically laws that took away a lot of the discretion that immigration officers and immigration judges had with regard to an immigration case, and give back a lot of that discretion. So immigration judges and immigration adjudicators are able to once again provide and be able to assess a lot of the factors that should be considered when they are deciding whether to allow a person to stay in this country. For example, the amount of years that a person has spent in the country, the ties that that person has to the community, whether the person has U.S. citizens for kids or not, whether the person has paid taxes for a very long time. For a lot of people, after the 1996 laws that were passed, all of those considerations are not are forbidden to be taken into consideration by the immigration judges and the adjudicators. And that is damaging the system and damaging communities and families, and not allowing for people to have a fair day in court. And one last thing that I would say is people need immigration lawyers, and people should have a right to have immigration lawyers representing people in immigration court. And I think that it's important for people who cannot afford to pay a lawyer, who are too poor to pay for a lawyer, to be able to be provided that lawyer by the government. Because the stakes are really high: permanent exile and deportation from from their countries and from their families and their communities, and it's an extremely severe penalty. And to be facing that without having the aid of an attorney is just absolutely inhumane and unconstitutional, possibly.
And just lastly, what did you learn from historians today that maybe you didn't think of when you first walked into the panel?
More than anything, I think that there's just so much information that historians have that could be useful for us as practitioners and activists and as an attorneys who are in the field every day. I think that specifically with one of the panelists, I was able to see how she had an incredible ability to be able to connect current practices to things that have happened in the past, and how a lot of the things that have happened in the past are repeating again, and it was just an important lesson to me that not only the idea of like history repeats itself seemed to be happening, but also the urgent need for us to learn from history and to be able to make the changes necessary so history doesn't repeat itself.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.